Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking about financial abstraction today. And what financial abstraction is it's the energy of like living on Apple Pay in a dream, right? Money not feeling real anymore because of how cashless our society has gotten, okay? And financial abstraction has a direct correlation to financial struggle, right? Of overspending or not being able to really prioritize your money because it doesn't feel real, especially when it comes to like investing in retirement, right? There's something that's been so gamified and foreign and just like click-clacking on our computer, little buttons that are like transferring all our money around. Venmo balance is not feeling real. Like all of this financial abstraction, all of this movement of our money into this, like the cloud basically, right? Into the technological ether, that has had a direct correlation to the financial struggle that we're seeing today. Now, I also want to be very clear that there have been obviously things from the top down, right? Things that are societal issues, systemic issues, especially with like the student loan crisis, the cost of living crisis, all of these things economically that are also unfairly affecting populations that are marginalized. That is very real. And financial abstraction has caused an overspending and consumer debt epidemic, right? There's like both of these things can exist at the same time. Financial abstraction and what millennials have been handed down, Gen Z has been handed down, right, economically, financial abstraction has now caused us to even divorce ourselves further from believing we could have financial wellness, okay? So both of these things can be true, and we're gonna focus on how you can make money feel more real to you without it feeling more scary. I want you to be able to have a real relationship with your real dollars, and that relationship gets to feel fun, sexy, exciting, easy. I want you to create that real relationship, okay? So we're gonna talk about financial abstraction a little bit more and how it shows up in your life. And then I'm gonna give you tactical ways to make money more real for you, so you can actually have the financial wellness you are desiring. Okay? You can have the abundance in your bank accounts. You can feel excited every time you spend. You actually want to save rather than it being something you have to force yourself into. You can actually invest into your retirement and feel excited about that because actually being able to not work one day feels like a reality for you because of your real dollars. This is what I want for you, okay? So financial abstraction, this is coming from a TED Talk that was done by Adam Carroll, this idea, and where I heard about it. Adam Carroll did a TED Talk, and one of the things he quotes inside of this TED Talk is, money is now an illusion, but it has very real consequences. Meaning, money has become so fake, such an illusion, these are just numbers floating in the cloud now, right? It's become such an illusion, but it still maintained the very real effects in our day-to-day life. The value of money and what it gets you hasn't changed, right? Like, you still have to pay for your cost of living. You still have to like support yourself in your older years. You still have to make money, but the actual using of it has become such an illusion, okay? When I say like Apple Pay in a dream, right? Especially a summer in New York, everyone's just walking around, Apple Pay, ID, and just vibing, just out in the streets of New York. And all of a sudden, a day's gone by and you've spent $300, right? And it's because the money you're spending when you're tapping on your Apple Pay and you're not thinking, it doesn't feel real. So you've spent $300 that didn't necessarily make you feel any more fulfilled, right? You had a good time, but you also could have spent $50 that day instead of $300 and had the same amount of fulfillment. But because the Apple Pay doesn't feel real, it's really easy to spend $300 walking around these streets of New York or wherever you live. So cash is the most real our money feels. It's a physical thing in our hand that we're trading in for services and goods. It's the closest we get to bartering chickens, okay? So money feels so real when we have cash. That's why I have a lot of old money gurus preach the cash envelope system, where you take the amount of money you need for the month out of the bank in cash and you put it in envelopes for all your categories of like, this is for food, this is for entertainment, this is for utilities, whatever. Now, that's really effective in keeping you in line with what you want to spend, but it's very rigid, right? And a lot of times the rigidity is not going to work for us. But two, it's not practical for walking around these streets in this day and age. Are you kidding me that I'm gonna be out in these streets of New York opening up my wallet with all my fucking cash in there to like pay for my coffee? Absolutely not. Absolutely not am I doing that, right? And it's also not practical, like especially with so many places not accepting cash anymore either, right? Because we've become such a cashless society, it's not practical. But we can take the energy of what cash does and we can infuse it into your current money system, okay? Because when we're not thinking about this, when we're not acknowledging that money doesn't feel real, here's a couple of ways that it might be showing up for you. Your Venmo and Cash App balances, they don't feel like real money. Ooh, we got party balloons going if you're watching this on YouTube. I need to figure out how to turn off that Zoom, iOS, whatever setting that like does the thumbs up bubbles and the balloons. It's very inconvenient. So what happens is your Venmo and your Cash App, when you get paid, it's like that money feels like play money, and not play money in a good way. It's like it doesn't feel real and you don't want to transfer it to your real bank account because then it becomes real money, and you want to have fake money to be able to do some bullshit with because you won't let yourself spend money on fun things if it comes from your real bank account, because your real bank account needs to be spent on real necessary things. Like, do you see how that connection happens? So what's happening is you don't actually have an accurate understanding of what you're spending throughout the month and what you still have left for the month, what's in your bank accounts, because a bunch of it is sitting in Venmo and Cash App because you and your friends are paying each other back. So you're like, wait, how did I spend that much? I don't see it in my bank account. It's because you're keeping fake money in your fake Venmo and Cash App balance, even though it's very real money. Okay. Another way I see this show up, I've had a couple of clients who own businesses, and they own really big businesses. And what one of them did was she had very few client payments that would come through PayPal, but she would leave money in her PayPal and not look at it until the end of the year or the end of the month. Like, she wouldn't check on it. She wouldn't calculate it into her real money, her real numbers, because she always wanted to feel surprised by this fun bonus money, right? I had another client who she would do a similar thing where she would just leave all of her money in her business checking account, right? And she would only pull money from her checking account when she needed it or when her personal checking account got low. So she didn't actually understand what her day-to-day life really cost her because she was just pulling money when her bank account would get low. But the money in her business checking account didn't feel real. And so she actually didn't feel like she was as financially successful as she was because she wasn't allowing herself to believe that that money was real money, because it was like, I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Okay. I have another client who, she also owns a business, and her energy is like, I make a lot of money now. My business makes a lot of money. I can spend whatever I want. And so her overspending actually was causing her to not feel like she was making as much in her business because so much of it was going into her personal spending versus a lot of the things in her business that she wanted it to go towards, right? For her savings, being 3 months ahead on bills, having money for taxes, things like that. And so all of these problems were solved by money organization, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But this can show up so many different ways. Another way I see it showing up is having debt on a credit card. right? Because you're spending, whether you need to or because you want to, right? You have debt on a credit card and you never check the balance because you want it to stay feeling not real. You want it to stay kind of in the cloud. The debt isn't real. I don't have it. Or like you feel the twinge of like, fuck, but then you just block it out again. Another reason you spend on a credit card, I had a client who she had credit card debt and we were on a debt payoff plan for her. We had created one for her. And one of the things I help my clients do when we create a debt payoff plan, you stop using the credit card that you have debt on because you actually want to see the progress you're making. You want to make that feel real. Now, we moved her to only spending on her debit card while she was paying off this debt. But what was happening was when she would buy something that was for her, was like self-care or like a joy purchase or something like that, what she would do is she would put it on the credit card because it's just like one thing, because she didn't want it to feel real coming out of her real bank account. So she wasn't able to see the debt payoff progress she was making because she kept putting money onto the credit card because it felt less real and felt better than pulling it out of her bank account. Now, she had the money in her bank account to pay for it, but it was the energy of, I don't want this to feel like a real purchase because I can't get behind buying these things for myself because I have this ingrained belief that I'm not allowed to buy fun and frivolous things because that's irresponsible. And if I'm on a debt payoff plan, I have to be super responsible and super buttoned up, right? Do you see how deep the money mindset stuff goes here? So what we had to do was we had to do a lot of work on making her bank account feel like money she was actually allowed to use so she could spend money on fun things and she didn't feel the need to put them on her credit card, right? Because she was able to allow herself to get excited about spending real money, right? Not just fake money. The other thing I see too is with so many apps now, right? Like not just banking apps, but like Robinhood, for example, where it's gamified investing, where you can just like click, clack, tip, tap, and all of a sudden you can invest like $5,000 at the click of a button, and it feels like a game. There was a lawsuit that happened that Apple had to pay out for because kids were doing in-app purchases on game apps. And it was like, oh my God, the parents saw their bill at the end of the month. They were like, oh my God, hundreds of dollars on these purchases. I didn't confirm these. How was my kid able to spend hundreds of dollars without me knowing, just like from a phone? They had to pay out in that lawsuit because that is ridiculous. In this TED Talk I was referencing, the guy was talking about how Disney, they are now, they call it like a frictionless experience. So everyone has those Disney wristbands where you just click your wristband to one of the souvenir shops, one of the restaurants, you can get snacks, you just tap your wrist and it doesn't feel real, right? Because they want you to spend more and more money, and they know, Disney, you bet your ass Disney knows that you spend more money when you are tapping on your wrist rather than actually pulling out your card or pulling out your money. Now, there is a statistic that you spend 12 to 18% more when you're spending on a credit card versus spending in cash. Now, this is an old statistic because nobody's like spending cash versus credit card anymore, really. But when we think about spending on a credit card feels way more real than even Apple Pay. Feels way more real than when you're tapping on an app. Okay, so I'm gonna do another podcast episode about this in a few weeks when my experiment is actually over. But I'm doing an experiment right now. I'm taking my framework that I teach inside of my video portal. You get it if you are in the Cashed Up Creatives monthly membership program. You also get access to this portal if you're a one-on-one client. There's a training inside of this portal called Make an Extra $500 a Month. And I teach you how to make $500 like this month. And it's a 3M process. And I'm actually going through the process myself to make an extra $500 a month outside of my business. Like, I'm not allowing myself to use coaching and how I normally make money as a way to bring in this extra $500. And there's so many things I'm trying. I've already made like over $400 and we're like 10 days in. So I can't wait to tell you all about it. But one of the things that I did was I used there's these betting apps like FanDuel and Sportsbook. I think those were the two I used, where they had big bonuses where you get like $250 of bonus bets if you spend $5. So as an experiment, I was like, yeah, let me see if I can like get some of that extra cash just in my bank account without actually having to like bet real money. And so I spent the $5 to like get in the app, and then I was able to place some I'm going to talk about this later, but I like placed some bets. Basically, I came out $115 in the green, and I was able to cash out and put it in my bank. And that was after I accounted for the $10 that I put in to like get the bonus bets. And then I deleted the apps and it was fine. I'm not condoning betting. Let me make that very clear. But while I was on these apps, I was even terrified as I was going through an app that I was unfamiliar with, right? I was like, I'm just trying to like place these free bonus bets so that I can get the cash from these bonus bets, not knowing anything about betting, to get them into my bank account. The ease in which you could just tap away $1,000 with one fucking click. I was like so careful as I was holding my phone, being like, okay, I'm tapping this and I'm tapping this and then I'm shutting it down, right? And I was so excited to be able to delete these apps once I had made my money from it. But in that moment, I was like, holy shit, of course there's a gambling problem because of how easy this is, right? And of course people are investing money in apps like Robinhood and getting into like GameStop and day trading and all of that, like Bitcoin and stuff like that, without fully understanding what's happening because it's so fucking easy. Now, the ease of online banking and having apps for your banking app, I'm going to talk about how that's beneficial, but there's a line, right, in which the ease actually becomes detrimental to you, okay? So I had a very visceral experience with, holy shit, I see how like this could happen to someone. I see how we as a society don't feel like our money is real because what the fuck? It feels like I'm playing a game. Because at the end of the day, when money doesn't feel real, you make different decisions with your money than you would if it did feel real, okay? You're gonna spend way more than you actually would because it doesn't feel real. And so what happens is money's going out towards things that don't actually intentionally fuel your life, your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment, right? Especially the long-term stuff. So money is going out to places that don't actually fuel you. So you have less in your savings account. You're not able to invest in your retirement and your long-term goals, right? To become work optional, right? So you're not giving yourself the future financial ease. And which reinforces the idea that you're bad at money, so fuck it, YOLO, it doesn't matter, right? We're just gonna keep like head in the sand, I'm not gonna worry about it. So it's this reinforcing cycle that's keeping you stuck. It's keeping you stuck. And so making money feel real is going to raise the stakes, but it's going to raise the stakes in where the rewards are going to get so much more real, okay? Because part of the reason you want money to stay feeling not real right now, why it feels so good to do Apple Pay, is because you don't have to think about it or make decisions in the moment, right? You can be decisionless. I think as someone who suffers from decision paralysis, I am constantly worried about making the wrong decision. It's something I have to coach myself on all the time. I get coached by my coaches on it all the time. It's like my one constant fear in my life is like, am I gonna fuck up by making this decision? So I have very strong decision paralysis that I have to continually work through, okay? So I get it. Making financial decisions and choosing in the moment by feeling like money is real, whether you want something or not want something, it would be so easy just to avoid that experience and let future you take care of it. But future you isn't gonna have to make a decision because there's no decision to be made. You just have to play cleanup crew, right? But cleanup crew is way less fun than being a decision maker, okay? So we all need to get on board with making decisions, and that making financial decisions gets to feel expansive and fun and exciting. Making decisions, period, gets to feel expansive and fun and exciting. At me writing down in my journal right now, that's like my mantra, right? Making decisions is fun. Making decisions is easy. I make great decisions, okay? So I get it, but we need to get on board with making decisions. So here are some ways to start making money feel real without pulling money for the month in cash out of the bank, okay? We're gonna do it without having to do that. The first thing that you're going to do is you need to be looking at your bank accounts and your numbers once a month, right? To manage all of your money, like actually taking care of it, setting aside a monthly money date. I call them financial CEO parties. A monthly time where you sit down and look at all of your money, you move it around, you're having a relationship with it, you're communing with it, right? You're doing that once a month. And then couple of times a month, you're just going to check in on your either your bank account balance or your credit card balance. The process I teach to my clients is called the money flow method. It's a bank account organization system that automates your money and lets you spend freely throughout the month while you're still able to save and invest and get 3 months ahead on bills and hit all of your other money goals, right? It's an amazing system. What this system requires, though, is checking in on the balance once a month, right? Because everything's split up and organized and clean and simple, all you have to do is like tap into your bank account balance, right? For me, it's my Amex balance, right? This is where I do my fun spending, like not my auto pays, not my bills, not my subscriptions. This is where I'm doing groceries, food, entertainment, Amazon, whatever. I check in on my Amex balance a couple of times a month and I'm like, yep, on track for what I want for this month. So at the end of the month, I'm not like, oh my God, how did I spend $2,000? In the first week, if I've spent $500, I'm like, oh, interesting. Why is that? Is this going to be a theme for the rest of the month? Am I going to spend $2,000 this month? Great. Let me clock that. Let me get on board with that and say yes to it. Or am I like, ooh, Brooke, what's happening here? We wanted to spend $1,000 this month. So like, what's going on? I can ask myself those questions, right? As I go during the month, rather than it being like, oh, fuck, now what am I going to do? I didn't plan for $2,000 this month. Okay. So you're just going to check in every once in a while throughout the month. Just check in on your balance. Look at the number. Make the money feel real. I gave an exercise to one of my clients inside of Cashed Up Creatives. She was feeling like in New York, right? As you're walking about your day, you hit a bodega, you pop into Target, you meet up with friends for drinks, like you have a whole day and you're just Apple paying away. And an $8 thing here, a $5 coffee here, a $12 sandwich here throughout the day, it all feels very negligible. You're like $12, $5, $6, whatever. Like it feels very small. But then at the end of the month, it's like, what the fuck? I spent so much money. How did this all end up as so much money? And it's because what happened is like, in the moment, you're being like, $5 isn't that much, $12 isn't that much, $8 isn't that much, but you're not looking at what it's all adding up to throughout the month. So then you're surprised and shocked and you go into a stress response at the end of the month. So her exercise for the next week was to every single day just like pop into her credit card balance and just see. How much is on my card? How much is on my card? How much is on my card each day? So this isn't saying like you aren't allowed to spend money on bodega sandwiches. It's let's actually make the $12 you're spending on a bodega sandwich feel real by seeing what it does to your credit card balance overall, alongside all of the other things you're spending money on. That's helping you make it real. Now, I'm hearing, right, as I'm saying this, what's coming up in your brain, and maybe your body is like, yeah, but I don't want to feel that, right? I don't want to feel that because it's going to make me feel like I have to restrict and cut back, and it's going to make me feel like I can't have the things I want. You put that on yourself. That is not at all what we are talking about here. You are allowed to spend money on whatever the fuck you want. It's about then saying yes to spending money on anything you want and liking what it does to your money, liking what it does to your bank accounts. You get to have both, okay? So that's the first thing. Having awareness, checking in on your money once a month, and then a couple of times a month, being able to pop into your bank account balance. Ooh, bank account balance is here for a second. This is also why I teach my clients to zero out the total amount on your credit card every single month rather than having your statement balance on auto pay. Okay? Because what happens is when you pay your statement balance, you're actually paying for the previous month's spending like a month later. So you never actually have zero on your credit card. So it's really hard to understand how much you're spending if you're always spending on your credit card. And if you are seeing the number month to month on your statement balance, you're seeing it way after the fact, right? You're like a delay. If you don't like what your statement balances are, you're like a month delay in what you're spending. So it like takes a minute for you to recalibrate. So I teach you how to have zero at the start of the month on your credit card balance. So on the 10th of the month, you could look at your credit card balance and be like, that's 10 days of spending, rather than like, okay, yeah, like the total balance is this, the statement balance is this, so I guess I've spent this much this month so far, or like getting freaked out by how big your credit card balance is, but then you're like, wait, but that's because my payment is going through on this time of the month. Like, we're cleaning all that up because I want you to easily, this is where the ease of online banking comes in handy, because you can have your app on your phone with your Face ID to protect it, right? We love security over here, right? You can pull it up real quickly on the fucking subway, right? And be like, oh yeah, I forgot to check in on it this week. Let me see my bank account balance. You can do it so easily. Use the ease of the online banking and the accessibility of money to your advantage, rather than it tipping over into being a detriment because it pushes you into ignorance and avoidance, okay? So that's the first thing, just looking at your numbers, just looking at them. That's the core of everything I just said. Look at your numbers. Second thing, this is about your savings. I want you to split up your savings into buckets or into different savings accounts. This is so, so important that you don't have all of your savings lumped up into one chunk, because $10,000 in one lump sum doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. Your brain can't actually comprehend what that's for and how much that actually gets you. It doesn't feel real. So you either feel like it's not a lot and you're so panicked because you're like, oh my God, I only have $10,000, and you're like hoarding money. You're trying to put as much into savings as possible because it doesn't feel like a lot. Or you're like, oh my God, if I have so much, like no problem at all. And so like you just pull money from savings because you're like, I got 10K, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden you only have $1,000 and you're like, what happened, right? And you can also oscillate between these two feelings, depending on the time of the month, what's going on in your life, how you're feeling, where your mindset's at. $10,000 could feel like so much, or it could feel like so little. Same person, different times of the month, right? That could also happen. So splitting it up into buckets, this is why I love Ally Bank so much. Again, not sponsored, just love them. They have a bucket feature inside of their savings accounts where you can bucket out your money. So let's say $10,000. Let's say it costs you $3,000 a month to live your life, right? $1,500 for like bills, subscriptions, and auto pays, and $1,500 for groceries, gas, takeout, entertainment, whatever else you want to buy. $3,000 is what it costs you to live month to month. So you're going to put $6,000 into a bucket called your on deck buffer. So now you're 2 months ahead on bills. You know, no matter what, you've got 2 months of bills set aside in one bucket. Okay. Now you have $4,000 left of that $10,000. You know, you have Thanksgiving flights that you have to buy, right? To go home and see family. You've also got to get a hotel. So you're going to put $1,000 into a bucket called Thanksgiving travel or vacation travel bucket. So now you've got $1,000 in that bucket. You know that you want to get new headshots, right? I have a lot of people who are getting new headshots this fall. I'm loving seeing them pop up on my feed when I hear people getting them and then they actually get them. So good. Everyone's headshots look so good. So people are getting new headshots this fall. So you put $800 into a headshot bucket, right? $800 for headshots. And then you put $200 into a bucket called new shoes, right? I actually need new tennis shoes. They are so old and so dingy. I have to go buy a $200 pair of nice, like, really ugly, really comfortable, really solid tennis shoes. So $200 in my new shoe bucket, okay? So now I've allocated $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of the money. I still have $2,000 left over. So one of the things I'm gonna make another bucket for is the holidays, right? Like as we are approaching October, November, December, right? We've got gifts, we've got festivities, we've got outings, we've got events, we've got holiday parties, whatever. I'm going to put $1,000 into holidays, okay? So now I've allocated $9,000. Now I'm going to put $1,000 towards, what bucket do I have right now? $1,000 towards, let's say a new bed frame, right? Or like new apartment decor. I'm going to put $1,000 there. So now I've allocated $10,000. And so instead of my brain being like $10,000 doesn't compute, it feels like a lot, it feels like a little, you can look at your buckets and be like, I'm 2 months ahead on bills. Yep, I can get my headshots. Yep, I can get this. And what that also does is sometimes $10,000 feels like it can cover so much. Or like, let's say I had a client who had like $40,000 in her savings account. And she was like, oh yeah, I've got enough money for this investment, and I've got enough money for this trip, and yeah, I've got enough money for this. And I was like, I don't think you do. Can we bucket it out? But it was like $40,000 felt like so much and it could cover everything. But then when we actually broke it up, it was like 1 month ahead on bills, this one investment, and like one of the other things she wanted to buy. But there was 4 other things that she thought it would cover that it wasn't actually going to cover. So bucketing it out made it feel so real. So having a savings account that allows you to have that feature, or even if you don't want to switch banks, which I have an episode on switching banks and why it's low stakes and why you can do it easily. It's also something I work with every single one of my clients on, whether you are one-on-one or you're in the monthly membership. We are working on switching banks so that you love where you bank. It's not terrifying. It's very low stakes. I actually have a walkthrough inside of the portal that shows you step by step how to switch banks, what to do, so it's not scary and you don't fuck it up. You also can't fuck up moving banks. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. So moving banks, but if you are currently at your bank and you haven't moved bank yet, you can open another bank account and like have multiple bank accounts for different things and title them different things. Did y'all know you can switch the names of your bank accounts? Instead of like checking account 7467, you can call it Future Brooke. You can call it Flex Spending. You can call it On Deck Buffer. You can change the name of it. Go do it. It makes money fun. Now, the third way to make it more real is while you are spending in the moment, you are going to, in your brain, say the amount you're spending and what you're spending it on. This is increasing your intentionality when you are spending, especially when you're out in these streets, right? Swiping your Apple Pay. You're tapping your Apple Pay, my bad. What you're gonna do is like when you go to Target, right? And it's like, okay, I'm spending $76 on 2 throw pillows, a blanket, a candle, and a couple of things of groceries that I'm really excited about eating this week. I'm spending $76. I like that I'm spending $76. It's gonna cause you to actually acknowledge what's happening when you tap. This is like, they do this in, I think it was the subway that they were talking about this in, or like train conductors. There was like a lot of accidents that were happening. This wasn't the subway, I don't think. I can't remember where this is from. But basically, there was some sort of train conductor or like airplane, some sort of travel person who's in charge of getting people from one place to another. And there was a lot of like issues, like accidents and delays and stuff that was happening that shouldn't have been happening. And all they implemented, the only thing they implemented was the conductors having to say out loud what they were doing in the moment and giving them a checklist, right? So like they had a checklist of all the things they had to do, and then as they were doing them, they had to be like putting my arm out to turn left, or like pressing this button to do this, or like I see this, right? I wish I knew what this was actually in reference to, but I remember it was some sort of travel person, some sort of conductor. And all of a sudden, once that was implemented, all of the accidents drastically decreased. Things started running so much more smoothly because there was an intention and there was a reminder every single time of this is what's happening. Even though it feels like you should know it, like, oh, why would saying this out loud improve it? Like, I already know it, it's whatever. It actually drastically improved what they were experiencing, right? Like a drastic decrease in accidents. So same with your money. When you say, I'm spending $76 on this, and this, it does something to you. Or like, I'm spending $6.56 on a pumpkin spice latte. That does something to you. When you say that in your brain, or you say that out loud, or like, I'm spending, $2,800 on rent. Click pay. Like, there's something about that intentionality that causes you to be present with your spending. You're reminding yourself that this is money that I am spending. That's what you're doing. You're reminding yourself of that. This also helps prevent what I call the fuck it blackout, which is you've had a hard day, or like you're just really in a bad place, or like you're in a really great place and like you want to get DoorDash, or you want to like buy something online or whatever, and like your body won't let you buy it. Like there's some resistance to getting it, or you feel guilty, or shame comes in, or whatever. And so what you do is you go fuck it, and you basically shut down. You put yourself in another place and you hit submit payment, or you click order on DoorDash, or you get whatever the thing is, like you're like, fuck it, and you just get it, and you go into a blackout. You go into an emotional blackout, and then you get the thing arrives, your DoorDash comes to your door, or whatever, you eat it, or like you receive the package, you try it on, and you're like, fuck, and then like the guilt comes in, or like you don't like that you did that, and like the reason you don't like it is because you blacked out. You blacked out. You said fuck it, and you blacked out. You weren't intentional when you hit submit payment, when you clicked buy now. This is forcing you to be present when you click buy now, because that does something different to your body. So these are 3 very tactical, practical ways you can start to make money feel real in your body this week. Today, you can start doing all of these things. And I also want to say, this is so important, so much more important too, if you own a business, okay? If you own a business, especially if you're making a lot more money than you used to, right? You're in that like new money era. When you're making a lot more money does not feel real, especially if you didn't have a lot of money to start with, okay? So if you are a business owner who is making over 6 figures now, 6 figures, 7 figures, if you are in that realm, this is doubly as important, because you need to make every dollar you spend and that comes in feel real. And again, this is not in the energy of like, oh, I need to budget every dollar and like I'm penny pinching. This is $1,000 is a real amount of money. $1,000 is a real amount of money, and I'm going to treat it as such. Everything I buy, from something $5 to something $50,000, all of it has meaning and has weight, and I have control over all of it, and I get to choose all of it. And every single dollar feels real. $50,000 feels real, and $5,000 feels real. That's going to help you avoid being in the place where you're making a lot of money, but you don't see the results, right? Or you end up way overspending the money that you're bringing in, and like you're bankrupting your business on accident. It's also going to avoid you still feeling broke when you're making all this new money, because you're not hoarding it away in this unreal place that you don't want to touch, because you don't want it to come into your real bank account, because then money's real and you didn't learn how to manage real money, right? You're avoiding all of that when you implement these 3 things. Now, also, this is a big thing that I work with all of my clients on. Inside one-on-one coaching, especially. Every single week, we are having you be so intentional with your dollars. We're talking about money every single week. You can't forget about your money, and money can't not feel real, because we are talking about it every single week on our coaching call. We are Voxering about it. That's the messaging app that I use. In between calls, we are talking about your spending, what's coming up, the mindset stuff that's coming up. You can't forget about your money. It's causing you to build the muscle of money intentionality. Money will feel so real for you after a coaching container. And this is also inside of the monthly membership. When you have your monthly group coaching call inside of this membership, when you have access to those videos, when you have access to the Slack community to ask for questions and celebrate your wins, you can't forget about money. Money has no choice but to feel real to you. This is why I have these 2 containers, because I want you to feel like money and financial wellness is available to you, and there is a way to still Apple Pay and make money feel real, to Apple Pay in a way that feels really good for you. So down with financial abstraction. We are not playing in a monopoly money world. We are playing in a real money world, but real money gets to feel as fun and exciting and expansive and juicy as monopoly money, right? We just want you to be making the actions based off of real money mind, not monopoly money mind. Have a great week, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.